See, that is called inception. Person going to the back, to infinity. This is what we like to see. We're using filmmaking techniques to present what we're trying to showcase. So, welcome everyone. Hello. That was interesting. My name is Jean-Jacques Gay. I am going to be the Q&A host here for the Prairie Shorts Program. We have a bunch of guests on our panel here who were part of the Prairie Shorts. So let's give a round of applause again for the Shorts. And I just want to start off. We are connected to Calgary at the same time, so welcome. Now let's start off. We're going to start from the end. If that's okay. I just want to please give your name and what film you created. Please.
Hi, my name is Andy Dick, and I am the director and writer and editor for Bittersweet Trail.
My name is Leon. I written and directed Regalo.
Hi, I'm Erin Hembrador, and I directed Manzanas and co-directed Container with Juan Luong, who's in Vietnam right now.
So we're going to turn the microphone around. You won't actually need them. Just speak loud.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Jiaoying. I made the short of the found footage where you can see a lot of old footages.
Thank you. So I guess I'm going to start. Let's take that.
Yeah, it's just turn the mic on. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Okay, so I guess we're just going to start. I love all of these films, and these are all great and wonderful. A lot of them are so poignant, and a lot of them just hit you right to your core. So I guess I'm just going to ask first, for all of you guys, let's just start in order here. What was the vision that wanted you to propel to create these films, and usually shorts aren't features. The purpose of a short film is to create an idea, something that hits you. So what was the vision that you guys wanted to use to create your short, but why did you want to tell that short to begin with? Why did you want to tell this story? So let's start at the end, please.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, that's a great question. I don't want to go for too long, but so I was approached by the Meiki National Museum and the National Association of Japanese Canadians to make Bittersweet Trail, and I was approached as an upcoming filmmaker. They asked me to document the bus tour across southern Alberta. In particular, the story, particularly the bus tour that was organized by David Awasa, who was the main person in Bittersweet Trail. What particularly drew me to the story, to documenting that story in particular, was two big things. One, it was certainly learning a lot more about Japanese Canadian history in that area of Canada, particularly in southern Alberta, the Sugar Beet Fields, and also as part of, for me, a personal discovery. I'm personally fifth generation Japanese Canadian, and I've thought a lot for a good chunk of my life about what does it mean to be Japanese Canadian, what does it mean to inherit that story from my parents and from my grandparents, and then potentially on to my children if that ever happens down the line. And thinking about what does it mean to hold onto that identity. And hearing the testimonies of the people involved, from David to Ruth, from Roger and many others, it was a wonderful experience to learn some of the stories firsthand, and to learn the experiences that make up that identity. And so that was what was really important to me, was to communicate that. And I think that theme is pretty present from the other people who spoke in the documentary, about understanding what does it mean to be Japanese Canadian, and what does it mean to pass on those stories onto the next generation, to hold on to that identity. So that was what was important.
Thank you.
What inspired me to do Regalo? Well, I've done several short films before that showcase Filipino diaspora, Asian diaspora, but I've never done any horror because I'm scared of doing horror. But actually, doing that film, it was a good therapy for me. So I've done comedy, I've done drama, but I wanted to challenge myself, do something that portrays different voices. But this time I did it through drama, and I do research on that one, and that came out to tell something about that in my perspective. Yeah, so it was a really fun experience. I'm not sure if I want to do another one, but you never know.
So, yeah. So, the idea for Manzanas came to me when my dad told me about how.
Oh, I'll take all the sorry.
But yeah, my dad told me about how, he basically what you guys saw in the film, he was so excited to try an apple when he moved to Winnipeg from the Philippines. And then when he tried it, he was really underwhelmed. And I just thought that's really reflective of what immigrants feel when they move to a Western country. And that's kind of what inspired me to write that. And then Manzanas, and then we worked really well together. So 2019, we're 39 Vietnamese nationals.
The project was new.
Try that.
Can everybody hear me? Wasif, Omar, thank you for joining us. Joanne, Sean, thank you for joining us as well. We are just trying to talk. The question I asked the filmmakers here on the stage was, and I'll relate to you. Short films are very poignant and very quick, but they express an idea. So what was the vision regarding your short film, and why did you want to tell that story? So I'll go to Omar Wasif regarding lack of vacation.
Okay, yeah. I'm Omar. I co-wrote and directed Low to Vacation. This film was, a little bit inspired by the Hulu series Rami in a way, because like they showed it was very unique because it showed Muslims in a way that we're not used to seeing on in the media at all. And like we always see Muslims as violent and terrorists and all that stuff, but that show kind of was the inspiration for us to make something that represented Muslims in a more honest and nuanced way. So we wanted to focus on just kind of a story about backbiting and like just flaws that some people have, and our character kind of plays the victim a little bit in that like he is blaming everybody else around him for all of his issues. And but while we were doing that, we also didn't want to we also wanted to try to make it funny. And those two kind of very serious issues, I mean pairing like that serious issue of Muslim representation with comedy can be kind of tricky, but I think we did it in a way that you know most kind of works. I don't know, Wasif, do you have anything you want to say? I
My
can't hear.
audio's off. Yeah,
But
my audio's off. Okay, thanks.
yeah.
Thanks for calling, Sean. Yeah, so I think something interesting like looking at the Sharam and focusing kind of also just on his Muslim identity, but then his Egyptian identity and kind of how that's tied in together. Because I think something interesting about the character, and I'm not myself Pakistani, but Omar Pakistani, is that like that country was basically formed like due to religious reasons. So like there's such an intrinsic tie between like what's culturally represented in Pakistan and like the Islamic faith, the Muslim faith. So I think there's an interesting kind of like look for me too to just be like those things are just so paired together. So that when he's like looking at like what other people are doing, like I mean just be straight up like what white people around him were doing, that's just like so tied to kind of like the feeling of like westernization and losing touch with your culture. So that was kind of another angle we also want to dive into as well. Yeah.
Joanne, who filmed Anak. Could you tell us what your vision and why you wanted to talk about the story?
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. I wrote Anak, and for me, I think a big thing is making films and documentaries that I would have liked to see growing up. So it's a very personal story. It's autobiographical. My own relationship with my mother is pretty fractured and strained. Even now, I'm 31 years old, and we don't really speak. So being able to tell the story of this young girl who so desperately wants a relationship with her mother, and then also this mother who so desperately wants a relationship with her daughter. Um, there is a disconnect there, I think, between many immigrant families and their first generation Canadian children. And I really just wanted to make a movie that was authentic to my experience, but not just my experience. So as I've been making this film, I've met other people who have very similar relationships with their parents. It's sort of like this gray area where there's love there, but something's missing. And sometimes parents don't get the relationship right. Sometimes kids don't get the relationship right. So yeah, just an authentic representation of that so that people who are struggling in the same sense know that they're not alone. That would have been such a game changer for me when I was younger, 13, 15, 21. And so hopefully that this film can be just some sort of piece of the puzzle in terms of if you are going through this, it's not just you, and you can bounce back from it, and there's a way, and there's not necessarily a bad guy, I think is a very important part of this film. So that's just what I wanted to envision, and hopefully I pulled that off in terms of what you watched.
Sean, question goes to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Sean. I'm joining you guys from Amiskwitchi Waskaikan, Edmonton. Yeah, it's really honored to be here and get to share space with all you amazing Canadians and really representing what Prairie Film is all about. So I'm just so grateful. My film is really my way of trying to perhaps talk about some of that intergenerational disconnection. I really I feel a lot of what Joanne's saying as well. Like I think as you know, a family that's experienced immigration, there's definitely a lot of intergenerational issues. But as a new father, as you can see, I'm trying to, in my own way, figure out ways that I can uh, work with and maybe challenge some of the what's to come as a parent, passing on memories and passing on culture. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm constantly still questioning myself as a father of like, what do I want to share with my son? But I also like want, hopefully this film is like a way to like put some of that pressure off, because really there's no way to do it all, right?
I don't know how much time we actually have, so I'm just going to see if there's any questions in the audience for any of the filmmakers here across the way or here on the stage. Is there anybody here that has a question right now? Yes, go ahead.
Question would be to maybe all of the filmmakers, but I know Fernando for sure has a full-time job, very busy and challenging one, and yet finds time to do these sort of films. So what would you say to a young upcoming filmmaker who wants to get into shorts, to manage time, to not feel discouraged and just overwhelmed?
Did you catch that? Sorry, with you first.
Yeah, sure. It's a full-time job. It's busy. Filmmaking is an art where there's a lot of collaboration. So try as much as young people can do is try to connect with other filmmakers or artists that's involved in filmmaking, because it can get lonely and very overwhelming. But at the same time, like, be committed. If you make mistakes, that's okay, because you learn from your mistakes. And the important thing is that as long as your voice is being heard, that's worth the effort.
Thank you.
Does anybody else want to talk about that? Okay.
I'm too young for that.
Well, I guess that's your thing. I mean, start young. That's the best part about it. No, so I'm happy that everybody's here, and I'm happy we can connect across the way. I actually really enjoyed all these shorts and what they had to do, what they represented for me. And obviously, identity is a huge, huge factor. But I think that the one thing that I've always really found regarding even films of a foreign nature is that what our voice is trying to say and what we are trying to say is usually pushed down. And I don't know if, I'm sorry. Oh, yes, people can see my lovely face. But our voice is usually pushed down. How do you think, as a filmmaker, we can use that medium to help perpetrate what we need to say? I know a lot of what you guys have done, it was amazing today, and I feel like what you guys have said really resonated, but what can you do for the future that can still push ourselves forward? Because as filmmakers, as people in the industry, Asian culture is usually still pushed down. So what do you guys say? How do you help with that?
Be persistent. Yeah, I did an interview with CBC this morning, and I talked about how when I first started off, writing scripts, most of my characters were white because that's what I saw on film and TV. But like when it finally clicked, I was like, hey, I got kind of cool stories that I've experienced. That's when writing became a bit more, not easy, writing's never easy, but it became more natural, I would say, and it felt more fulfilling. And I think like there's been an emergence of content from, diverse filmmakers, and it's really encouraging. Like I follow so many amazing like diverse directors on Instagram, and just seeing them like do their stuff behind the scenes, like they're inspiring me, So, yeah, like just look at what other people are doing and just know that like, yeah, it's possible to
to tell our stories, and we should be telling our own stories. That's the other important thing.
No, I completely agree. I found that as the same for myself, that I would, all my characters that I wrote were all white, because that's what I knew.
Yeah.
Growing up, living in a white neighborhood, that's what I knew and what we did. But as you grow older, you learn to understand where you come from. And sometimes that's challenging, sometimes that's scary, but our voices, where we come from needs to be, I don't want to say represented, but showcased, because it's who we are. This is what we love to do. I mean, everybody here are filmmakers, writers. We want to create, and creating is part of this. So does anybody have any other films that they wanted to create for anything that kind of goes to this? You know what, I'll change the question. I have, I always ask filmmakers this usually, and I always try to see what they can get to. But what was the film that best inspired you to want to be a filmmaker, to create, to actually bring yourself out there? Because this is not an easy business, and this is also not a, at times, forgiving business, but there's always something that clicks with all of us that makes us move forward. What pushed you guys to create? Anyone?
Actually, Sean has.
Oh, Sean, please, please.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to answer both the first and second question. I think it's really important to really think about not just like just to help the person that had asked, especially for young filmmakers. You know, we go into this. If you don't know the industry, you go into it thinking, oh, I got a camera and I know how to write a story. But there's a lot about the community aspect of it and building a team that a lot of folks end up, you know, they learn about if they can kind of persevere and get through it. So, you know, it kind of ties into the second question where we're talking about Asian representation, where we actually do need a lot more folks who are people of color in industry, in the community, that are in the industry, because still, although there is a lot of, you know, content out there that could be Asian, in those kind of industrial circles, there's like, it's still, you're the only one. And if we're really going to like hold space to you know, represent equally of what we know as like Canadian identity, like I think that there needs to be more representation within those industry circles. So, you know, it's a tough question, like because obviously like filmmaking isn't just about like making a film. There also is just like so much in it, and it's such a big machine where, you know, you're part of, like, you could be part of so many types of films, and you don't have to just be holding a camera, right? But I think just to answer that question for a first filmmaker is like, if you have someone that you're trying to support, like thinking about not just like the you know, picking up you know, skills in screenwriting and you know, operating cameras, but also encouraging like getting in to know what the community's like, because every community is very different as well. And yeah, and so I mean, Alan's there. I'm sure he's like can tell a lot about his experience because he's very much like connected in so many of those circles. So just in terms of Winnipeg, sorry, I'm just, yeah.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that. Yes, of course. Please.
Yeah, my name is Giselle Benson. I've been in the film industry for 10 years now. My son is a filmmaker and director. So I've been in platforms with New Hollywood, making the DEI emerge so fast, diversity, equality, and inclusion. So I'm very fascinated with the Fascination Festival because it's my first time attending it, and has a son who's also half is diverse. So my question is to all of you filmmakers and also Fascination festival. What your vision is for these filmmakers to be able to advance to make it that Canada really truly are the first that evolves, because we are true circumstance of events for immigrants to feature that we should not only talk about Asian filmmakers, but also the rest of our diversity, equality, inclusion. This fascination is something that's really important to have in the future. So what is your mission for the filmmakers that are currently here to make them challenge more in the industry, challenge themselves more in the industry?
Thank you. Of course. Thank you. Did you guys get that question as well? Did you guys hear that at all? No? Oh. So Consuelo, one of our actors, and we've been in the industry for a while, has a son in the industry. She is wondering what your vision and mission is to help further the diversity for New Hollywood. If anyone wants to start, or even just jump in.
I'll jump in. I think that, of course, it's so important to be diverse and to be inclusive, and we're certainly in an age where everyone has that at the forefront of their minds, and it's so refreshing to be able to do that. I think in terms of diversifying Hollywood, it's going to take quite a bit. I feel like we all know that they're not quite as progressive as they make it seem, and right now the only stories that I'm seeing are Asian stories, like Crazy Rich Asians. It's about a bunch of rich Asians, and it's an Asian story, but I very rarely get to see a film where it just happens to be an Asian cast, and it's just a story. I mean, I don't have to direct or act or tell stories that are just of my trauma and my race and my culture. I want to tell stories of joy and fear and everything in between, not just because I'm Asian. So I think in terms of diversity, of course, we need to represent ourselves and make a foot in this industry, and knowing that we can be successful where perhaps in the past we did not have as big of a chance. But I mean, this entire film festival is proof that there are so many of us around. We're here, we're directing, we're acting, we're producing, and we do very good work. And in terms of progressing, I think we just need to keep on this track. And I think that our goal should be to be able to tell all sorts of stories, not just Asian stories. Hope that was helpful and insightful. Also, hi, Consuela. Tell Omar I said hi.
She was the lead actress in my son's musical. Congratulations, Joanne. That was wonderful. No, it's really important because I do sit in a platform with producers of Hollywood and and a lot of executives, and we continually speak about that DEI and inclusion. So we want to make sure that fascination is part of that whole around. And the last BIPOC event that they had, they were their Ability CTV and who I believe was looking for diversity for like half-hour comedies or an-hour drama series from people of diversity. So
Of course. You also have. Please.
Yeah, I really appreciate Joanne's comments regarding that. And I just say that like my challenge is to be more aware of the stories. Just like being more aware of the stories and then just be more aware of in the productions that I try doing, I have to be aware of diversity and try to be more inclusive in that way. Something like Aaron kind of hinted at earlier, like I too, like when I was thinking of films growing up, I typically just thought of like white characters as well, right? And I think like when my particular experience with Bittersweet Trail was obviously this is like that's a documentary film, and those are obviously like real life stories. But what I kind of learned from that is that oh right, like there are hundreds of stories, like just even like the history of the history of people living in this particular part of Canada and across the whole country, right? Of not just Japanese Canadians like in Alberta, but also Japanese Canadians say in Manitoba, or Filipino Canadians living in Winnipeg, for example, right? And other groups, right? These are other stories that deserve to be told, I suppose. And sorry, it's a bit of a babble, but I guess when I just say that I really appreciate the comments that are being said so far, in the sense that I really see film as a wonderful tool as a really wonderful tool to empathize, right? To spread empathy. And so I think as long as there's like art, as long as like, there's artists that continue to persist in that down that route, right? Of revealing those kind of stories, then then more representation will come out of that. And yeah, so I don't know. So that was that was just a general comment of appreciation of what was said earlier.
But you had also mentioned your documentary, but at the same time, like every story that we tell, every story that comes from a place of Asian heritage in a way, the folklore of our culture, the struggles of our culture. Every story is built on a truth, and these truths need to be expressed. And sometimes like people don't want to listen, but we have an avenue, we have a way to do this now. And yeah, and I love your film. I thought it was beautiful. Especially it showcases a part of our history that is almost forgotten. And that scares the shit out of me. I'm swearing. 2 minutes? I apologize. I thought he was giving me the peace sign. Fernando, you had something to say.
Yeah, for diversity to continue, I think that there needs to be a lot more training for the filmmakers.
Okay, yeah.
And also a lot of pressure for the media company to actually celebrate and support it more. My inspiration right now is the young filmmakers here, so I'm getting a lot of ideas. Make me push forward to continue on. So if you have that passion and that drive, and it's important story, relevant. I'm still having fun doing it, so I think I'm going to continue. Thanks to you guys.
Well, I'm going to ask one question. I hope there's time for this. But growing up in an Asian community, I've always felt that trying to get into the arts and humanities was almost disrespectful. And I mean, coming into being an actor, being a filmmaker, was something I didn't have the chance to actually talk about with my parents until I was about 25, because, courage and alcohol. But how do you feel that we can expose younger generations, as was asked before, but towards our Asian culture, that film isn't scary, and yes, we can still do something? Because it is a hardship. I feel like film at times is already looked down upon, but in Asian culture, it's almost doubly looked down upon, because you are not becoming a doctor, you're not becoming a pharmacist or a nurse. You're a lawyer? What? No, I mean, we are meant to aspire, but yet film isn't one of those avenues. How do you tell the younger generation not to be scared? I do that to you guys.
I want to jump in just because I just filmed like a segment for CBC about like exactly this. And I found that a lot of different people from different Asian cultures do sort of disappoint their parents. Like, I'm a filmmaker and I wanted to be an actor. So 15 at the dinner table, I was like, Mom, Dad, I want to be an actor. And they were like, oh my goodness, you're supposed to be a doctor. And that shattered them. And I think it's important to just realize that push towards a more stable career is just, it's out of love, because our parents struggled, our family struggled. They don't want to see us struggle. So a career in the arts is unsteady at best, and that's just their way of trying to protect us. That being said, I think that all of us here are just proof that you can make a living out of art. I'm 31 years old, and I just started working at this full-time, I think like in December of last year or something. So I'm really happy that this is my full-time job and I get to do it as much as I want. And for me, that's success. But that being said, there are a lot of filmmakers here that do work, quote unquote, day jobs. And that is also a level of success. So it's really just, it's up to you. What do you want to do? Do you want to do art full time? Do you want to do it sometimes and then work another job? Like, whatever it is, that's success. If you're happy and you're living. And I think it's really important, especially for younger people of color, to know that a lot of us got into these jobs very untraditionally. Some of us went to film school, some of us didn't. For me, I started, like I said, as an actor, and now I'm producing, and I did not go to school for any of that. And yet I'm here. So I guess my message is it's possible. It might take you a little while. It might be a weird kind of indirect route. But we're around and we're here. And if we can be up here doing these things, making these films, having Q&As with wonderful audiences such as yourself, like, you can do it too. Maybe next year you'll have a film premiering and then I'll be watching it from the audience. And honestly, like, that to me is also part of success, is not only just me and all of these filmmakers being able to represent our different cultures, but being able to pave the way for other people to do it so that it's easier for you than it was for us.
So we're gonna wrap up. So thank you all so much for this. This was so amazing to watch, and all these films are incredible. And I'm glad we get to talk to you guys as well, because we don't get a chance to talk to the filmmakers of short films at times, and it is very difficult and hard to just want to reach out and talk to anyone, because the one thing that I've realized about the industry and these little communities is that when we're together, we can create, and creating is probably one of the most humble things in this industry, and it's a brilliant thing. So thank you guys again. Thank you so much. Wasif, Omar, Joanne, Sean, thank you guys so much for coming out. Thank you guys for being here. Please, everybody, give it a hand. Fascination Film Festival still keeps going on, so we have some stuff going on at 4:30. We have a movie at 7 and at 9, so keep on going, keep watching, and we're going to be here for today and tomorrow. Thank you again.